Welcome back to the Elevated Coach podcast. I am your host, Joel Burgess. I am a leadership and business coach and the founder of the Elevated Coaching Collective, a community of heart-led coaches here to play big, make a massive impact, have a load of fun, and make a load of money on the way. In these earlier episodes, I wanted to speak to those that have had the greatest impact on my life. So it's such a pleasure today to be sharing this conversation with Alex, Lawrence, and Ben. The four of us have formed what we call our Mastermind, where every quarter we meet to share our challenges, our wins, and to provide direct feedback. And in this conversation, we explore the power of giving and receiving that direct feedback, how to form a mastermind like this, and what men crave and what gets in the way of what they crave, being connection and vulnerability and spaces like this. It's a beautiful conversation with three incredible men that have really shifted me, my being, and who I am. So I really believe that you're going to enjoy this conversation, and let's get stuck in. So I wanted my first podcast to be with the people that have had greatest impact on my life, and hence why we are speaking. There's few people that have had a bigger impact. So I'm really excited for today's conversation. Just for the context of the listeners, this is what we call our mastermind. It started, I don't know how many years, we can explore that, but back in Nando's, and it's blossomed into something really quite beautiful and powerful. And I want to explore what it means for and what it's done for each of you today. But I've got a tradition on this podcast that the previous guest asks the first question for the next guest. Now, we had David Chambers, who you all know. He's come up with the question, and it means that we don't fuck about in this podcast. We go straight in. And the question he asked you guys, and maybe I'll start with you, Alex, and come to Ben, is what was a really tough time that you experienced in your life that molded you, who you are today? And what were the lessons that you took from that experience? No messing about.
Question straight in there, no warming up. This is the warm up. Where to begin with this one? A challenging time that molded who I am as a person. Without being specific, I'm just gonna talk about like a challenging personal time, like a relationship time, real kind of bad time. And I remember it being like one of the worst periods of my life that I had to go through. And it taught me, like, the choice in the moment, I remember, was to avoid, run away from the challenge that I'm given, or stand up, be a man, own your shit, go through the challenge, and whatever lies in that journey, you're ready for, and you're prepared for, and you'll learn from. And what that taught me was, well, I made the right decision in the moment, I think, and that was to go through the challenge rather than run away. And what that taught me is whatever challenges come up later on in life, however small or however big, there's that decision of run away or go through the challenge. And every time I go through the challenge, I realize that I can handle it. And if I show up with integrity, respect, and ownership, it's never as bad as sometimes your fear or anxiety thinks about the issue is going to be. So I take on that mindset in physical challenges, in business challenges, relationship challenges, and think I can get through this.
Beautiful. Lawrence, what was a time in your... I'll come to Lawrence. Lawrence, what was a time in your life, a tough time in your life that's molded who you are today?
I don't know. I would say that I had a sequence of them in my 20s. I would say that was the decade that I look back, whether that's a story that I've created now, that I've based around a series of events, I'm not sure. But looking back, I think my 20s was a series of challenging events. Probably started off with a loss of innocence at the start when my auntie was murdered. And that was like a moment of like, the world can be a brutal place. It can be, the things that you think happen on the news, on the movies, were happening to our family. And it was like a kind of hollow moment where you feel your guts fall out of you and you go into kind of a head spin reeling moment. And I would say that I had, from a sort of personal point of view and our family point of view, a number of events throughout my 20s that challenged me in a certain way, which initially took away the privilege and protection that I was very lucky to grow up in throughout my teenage years and prior to that. And then in my 20s, it was a case of being kind of hit sideways by various events and moments that started with that particular event. And then my 20s essentially finished up with me trying to sort of numb that and trying to sort of find joy and trying to escape pain and anxieties I was feeling through a huge party scene. So I had 2 or 3 years escaping into that. And I would say the making of me, how I consider it, was in my 30s essentially, when I probably hit a point for me in my life that was rock bottom, where I had health that was rock bottom, where financially, I had struggles, and reached the point where I wanted to change things, wanted to turn around. And I remember just walking into the gym actually and getting on the rowing machine, and I've always hated the rowing machine, and I just started moving my body. No real plan, no real reason around it. It just felt good. And then I turned up the next day and I kept doing it. And slowly but surely, I started to pin my sense of self and this new future that I was building upon something I could control and I could build upon, which was my fitness routine, fitness regime, which evolved and then brought in mindfulness and started off this whole journey that I've been on ever since, which is finding myself, my place in the world through fitness and mindfulness, essentially. I'm 40 now, so I would say the last 10 years has been an incredible journey from that place.
I think it's so important for us to share this, right? Because I think sometimes when you're in those challenging moments, you can't see beyond that. Like I remember, I would say my most challenging time was when Nutrifix failed, 4 or 5 years that I poured into that, all my money. I chased it with a credit card, and it completely broke me. I remember this deep sense of shame and embarrassment that I just kept to myself. And now it's so clear to me that was all part of the natural law, the divine order, whatever you want to call it. It's so clear. It led me to coaching, to where I am now. And for me, that's really given me a deep, deep sense of trust for something that's way bigger than us, like way bigger. There's a beautiful quote in the Tao Te Ching, or one of the verses is, the Tao does nothing but leaves nothing undone. And it's such a paradox, right? It kind of thinking about nature, there's no thinking, there's no doing, there's no effort. But it's still doing, it's still moving, it's still creating. And if I reflect back on that experience, it's just really given me a sense of trust in timing. And I've sometimes have found myself in the last 4 years, almost like in that victim mode of, and perhaps a little bit of entitlement as well. Like, when's my time going to come? Like, come on, I'm working so hard here. Come on, give me a break. When's my time going to come? And it's a little bit cringe even sharing that and looking back at that part of me. But I think now I can start to see all these big moments like for what they were, like preparation, testing. Like, are you ready? Because you better be ready. And I think it's really important for us to all to share that actually we've all been through it. Like, we've all been through those times where we wanted to give in.
Yeah. Do you think like going through those tough times, like multiple times, like a pattern, gives you future wisdom and future trust that the next challenges you can have patience with, or understanding from that higher perspective? Like you said, nature isn't rushing, it just knows its course. Like, going through those challenges, does it prepare you for the future of like, oh, this is okay because this is a part of my story, even if I don't know where this is leading me now? Like, have you resonated with that kind of idea now at this point?
Totally. And I think like we can get so caught up in not wanting challenges. I can't remember, I think it was Chris Williamson who said challenges aren't a bug of life, they're a feature. To wish problems away, we're wishing life away. And what I'm learning to really fall in love with is actually the challenges and the problems are kind of where the juice of life is.
Yeah.
And, I've reflected recently, again, a little cringe, but in moments in the past, like, oh, why am I not at that stage yet? And I'm just not ready. We're just not ready for that stage. If you listen to some of these big influencers and coaches and what have you, the amount of stick they get and the amount of judgment they get and the amount of abuse they get, like that takes a lot of work to get there. Like I've just started to get a little bit of abuse. Someone attacked I like 5 people attacked my teeth the other day. And I'm like, come on, man. These are
Sorry
fake.
about that, Joel. I'm sorry.
They're
I had to do
implants.
it.
I know. And I know 2 of them are Lawrence from pseudo names. But totally, I'm with you, Alex. Yes. So Ben, what's a tough time in your life that's really shaped who you are now?
I'm going to go with what comes to me right now. And I think this is probably the deepest truth for me. And that is, I don't know where I would have been if I didn't go through my whole experiences around sex. I don't know if I would have just kept living like an empty life. But yeah, well, since the age of 18, I was struggling to orgasm. And that kind of, it almost got me sort of like lad points as I, through my 20s, because it kind of, there's that sort of perception of like stallion. You didn't, and most other guys were like, oh my God, I finished quick. And it was kind of embarrassing for me. I never had that issue, and it kind of gave a different perception. So it worked for me in who I was trying to be at that age. And then I reached 30 and it had interrupted a few relationships. And, I was thinking at some point I want to have kids. And so it was that point. I really remember being in like the pain of another failed relationship, another experience where just like sex was an issue, where I was like, okay, I need to, I need to do something about this now. And so, yeah, I really believe that change only happens when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change. And so, I went through my first sort of vulnerable experience in speaking to a hypnotherapist about this challenge, thinking that she was just going to teach me new sex tricks and I was going to get more lab points. Really, that was like really what I thought. And I started working with her, and for the first few months, like we didn't talk about sex. And I was like, what, this is kind of interesting, but when are we getting to the sex bit? When are you going to teach me tricks? And we just never did. But it was just an unfolding. Like ultimately, she was teaching me to reconnect to my emotions and to reconnect to my authenticity and to feel and to express and all this stuff. And I believe that one day I would have found that, because I think it's inherently who I am, and I would have listened somehow. But I also believe that was my body's way of communicating, like, listen, you've numbed yourself, or you've numbed us, me. And if you're going to numb me, this is going to be our experience throughout. And so, I listened. I'm glad I listened, because it opened me up to an authentic or more authentic life. But it was hard. There's a lot of painful experiences through that, and it continues to be a work on for me. I can't say it's led me down a path, but it's continued. There's a lot to work through in there.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I think this journey can sometimes be glorified, right? This personal development world, it can have this picture of it's all sunshine and rainbows, but the nature of this work is like you've got to go through that pit of fire, leading with your heart, being authentic, speaking your truth, living. It's hard work. And I kind of want to talk about the role of the mastermind and what role that's played in each of our lives. Because Ben, what year did we form this? It was like 6 or 7 years ago, maybe, or you kind of formed it, right?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you. Yeah, maybe 6 or 7 years ago feels about right.
6 or 7 years ago, yeah. And it's beautiful, right? Because it still feels like it's just getting started. But we've shared some really challenging times together. If we kind of reflect back to us 6 years ago, I was so fresh to this work. It was, for me at that time, it was all business, it was all money, and it's blossomed into this really deep, powerful container that has held all of us through some quite challenging times. But I'd love to hear from you, like, what's the mastermind done for you? Because I think if I just speak to the audience here, if there's one thing you kind of take from this conversation is the power of a mastermind. And I would love to hear like what it's done for each of us. Alex, what's the mastermind done for you?
Well, so much, so many things. What to talk about first? I think, like you said, it started with like business and numbers at the beginning, but what it's evolved to be over the years is this kind of non-judgmental space of no topic or aspect of life cannot be spoken about. If we want to share something about our relationship or our business or our career or our social media or ideas or anything, this is like a place where, of course, we have other parties in our life, like our partners and family, but there's something about our mastermind which is truly kind of non-judgmental, where we can say and bring anything we want here first. And that's really special to have that kind of safety to share and speak about. But not only that, the accountability of like, we do have our quarterly check-ins. We do create some amazing meetings where we can discuss things and also challenge each other. And I think that having the structure that's different at each meeting, sometimes it's a mixture of celebrating where we're going, but also opening up a genuine space for critiquing or checking on some blind spots of each other. And that, partnered with the non-judgmental safety, is a unique and great place to be that I haven't found or kind of have anywhere else in my life, really. So there's just 2 points that come to mind.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And Ben, I'd love to get your and Lawrence eventually, but because we come from rugby backgrounds, right? Where like I reflect back to my rugby brotherhood, and they're some of my closest friends, and there was such special times, in the changing room, and it was that banter, and you were taking the piss at each other, and there's something very, very special about that. And for me, I think why this mastermind is so special is that we still have that sometimes schoolboy humor, that changing room banter, but also we are able to share things and hold each other in different lights and what have you. So Ben, love to hear your experience and what the mastermind's done for you.
Yeah, totally, Joel. And I think that is friendship for me. That's what, I don't want to just be a certain way. I don't want to have to show up and be a certain type of person. I want to just be me. And there are many parts to me. And I think what we've got in the group, and I think what we've cultivated, like consciously between us all in communicating, that we are willing to receive everything from one another, and that we won't look to judge. We won't make to make good or bad. We will just look to see one another, is a space where we can show up and bring our full selves, but like from a place of trust and willingness to understand and know that we're coming from a good place. We're not trying to be controversial or difficult or trying to get one over each other. We are just expressing from a place of truth. And I think I've developed a friendship with another guy as well, who recently, and he really expressed to me, said, I really hope you can feel that this is coming from a good place, but I just want to express, this is what I'm seeing right now. And there's not many places, like we cultivated that first in our group, there's not many places where I really received that truth, that level of truth, where I can really feel that people are coming from a place not to better me or to make me feel bad, but to really help me, inspire me, and to listen to me and to give honest feedback. And that's what's really important and rare. The amount of times in my life where I do something, I ask for feedback, and people go, "Oh, really great," or I really enjoyed it, and I'm just so empty. It's just like, it is lovely, in theory. It's like, good, but it just doesn't help me at all. And I am on a mission. I think we are all in a mission within this group to want to grow and expand. And so from that place, it's really important that we receive truth and the ability to expand. I don't grow. None of us grow and we go, "Yeah, Joel, that's really good. Well done." It's like, "Joel, that's awesome. I think you're so good at this." But if you considered that, you could also look at it this way. If that was true, not forcing it, but if it was true, I think that's valuable. And I just don't think we live in a world that is acclimatized to living that way and being that way with one another. And if I were to show up that way in other groups of friends that I've got, I think they would, they would take it personally, or they would be, all right, chill out, So for me, it's the level of honesty and the truth that we express, knowing that it comes from a good place within us all, and we're not trying to outdo one another or compete, but to help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And before I come to you, Lawrence, why do you think that is, Ben, that that isn't accepted in society? You know, when you talk about it, it's like, yeah, we all want it. Why is it not accepted? Why is it so hard in your usual friendship groups?
We're just so disassociated to conflict, aren't we? So scared of conflict. And I think when conflict is like the possibility of conflict is there, then, you know, we change or we hide or we force or we get angry or we don't present it from like a loving, truthful, honest place. And at the same time, we're so not used to receiving that. It's so unfamiliar to us. I just think it creates awkwardness. We don't know what to do with it. And that the immediate reaction is to go into our head. The head is so protective and defensive. If someone says something to us that challenges us or that perhaps suggests that we're not perfect in some capacity, then it's like, all right, well, you're not perfect either. So don't, or like whatever it is that we need to do to deflect it. So that's what the head will do, right? And I think there's ability within this group to be able to check ourselves. And whilst that might still go on in our head, like, all right, Joel, chill out. Like, didn't need that kind of level of truth. We can actually then stop and listen beneath that and go, oh, thank you. Actually, like when I take that from a different place, then actually that's really helpful for me if I'm willing to be vulnerable enough to receive it. And most people aren't willing to be that vulnerable, are they? They don't want it. It's easier not to be.
Totally. Lawrence, what's the Mastermind done for you?
Taking me on a journey of evolution, I guess. At the start, I knew that Ben suggested the four of us got together. I was very open sexually to it. I knew that he was a progressive guy. But then when he said, let's meet up in Nando's, I thought, okay, well, we'll see what happens. Maybe this is just business. And then turned up to what I thought would be a business meeting, a number of business meetings. Turns out we're all on some sort of deep inner journey, which has completely revolutionized the way I think about the world and my place in the world and my friendships and my relationships. And I think that what you were tapping into there about truth, a certain exercise that we do where we will be extremely open and honest and share with each other areas that we think each other can grow in. And it is unbelievable how spot on and in my deeper psyche and mind all three of you are. I don't think you've ever got a point that I've gone, no, actually, it's uncanny how well you know me. And that must be a sign that we are all so open with each other, that yes, we hold that space for each other, but we are also so prepared to share anything and everything that we're experiencing. And with that, it has shown me actually, to follow on what Ben was saying, how shallow so many of the other interactions or relationships I might have in this life are, and how much depth can be cultivated and how much depth I want. It's made me hungrier. It's shown me what's possible when people, as Ben would say, remove the mask and you just bare all and you're open and honest. And I've only touched the surface. I feel like there's so much more work to do here. And I feel like the Mastermind has been a portal, even though we thought we were getting together to help each other as individuals, to grow our businesses and to have accountability and so on. Everything's been flipped on the head. Instead of focusing on outcomes, which is what I probably used to do when we first all started getting together, how can I hit these targets or whatever it might be, flipped on its head to how can I go deep and build this foundation within myself to fully see and express myself out there in the world. And then the outcomes will be what they will be on the basis of that. So it has been a journey, and it has evolved. And, I do love you guys like brothers. Yeah.
Excuse me for interrupting the show, but I wanted to ask you, have you subscribed yet? I ask because this is a brand new podcast and it will really help me out in my mission to spread coaching as far and wide as possible. I truly believe that coaching can change the world, and your simple subscription helps me out more than you realize. So thank you for your help in advance. And if you feel like this episode might help a friend out or another coach, then go ahead and share it. Thanks in advance, and let's get back into the show. Yeah, beautiful. I feel like the Mastermind has, this group has kind of gone through a journey, and I think it really flipped when we had that exercise around feedback. And I think if I speak for myself here, until that point, I felt like I was on a very personal solo journey of personal growth. Like I can do this on my own. And in that one mastermind we had where we gave each other really direct feedback, from the heart, but it was direct feedback. It was a moment for me of like, wow, you really cannot do this alone. And actually, the people around you are your greatest allies for your growth. And I remember receiving some feedback from Ben around compassion. And my mind was like, fuck you, Ben. And I wanted to shut it down. Yes, thank you. I wanted to shut it down. I remember my mind being like, that's a load of bollocks. And I wanted to shut it down. And I just went and sat with it. And I voice said, could you give me a bit more context to that? I went and sat with it. And I was like, wow, there's so much truth in that. I did not see it. And I was stuck in my own way and I couldn't see beyond myself sometimes. And that expanded me as a human so much, just one bit of feedback. And I was so grateful after that. And also I felt like every time I've received feedback from each of you, it's like our relationship has got stronger. It's like the opposite of what we think is going to happen actually happens. And it's both medicine in giving it and receiving it. So when you can give someone feedback and they hear it and they action it, that's like medicine. You suddenly realize, oh wow, like I don't have to hold on to these things, and I can share. So on the flip side of, I can see the growth of receiving this feedback. But what's your experience with that medicine of actually giving the feedback and how healing that can be? Can anyone talk to that?
Well, first and foremost is you become a much more active partner, like you said about being in a personal journey. And I'm a bit of a lone wolf in my journey as well, but being part of a mastermind has enabled me to really invest myself into all of your journeys and what you're going through, to improve my feedback, to improve my intuition into your journey, to improve anything that I say to you that has some value for you. Not only that, but the medicine that you're talking about is often we pick up on something that each of us need because either we've sensed it or experienced it a little bit ourselves. So therefore, giving the advice or feedback is often something either consciously or subconsciously, I find for me anyway, is like something for me as well, I find. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, you guys kind of show up in my work all the time, like, again, subconsciously, as you say, because we go so deep with each other. We both in terms of receiving and transmitting and observing and being curious around each other. There's so much from each of you that percolates in my subconscious and comes out in my coaching style, or things that I develop and look at. I can almost see a little bit of each of you in each one, and I can't. Again, it's from having the confidence the confidence has come from the space that you've each held during these conversations that we've had, to go as deep as you want and to allow such depth and honesty. And then once that's out in the open and we're all kind of intertwined with whatever words we've spoken to each other, to have recognition and to have that space held is somehow given me. In the past, I probably felt like I needed permission to know that I was right about some sort of sense of intuition or whatever it might be. And with that, it's kind of dissolved into this transcendence where I feel so comfortable now observing the little bits of you, that somehow it's almost becoming osmosis is a part of me as well. And I feel it shows up for me in my day-to-day life without getting too soppy. Well, we can get soppy, but I do have moments. So I might be driving along and I'll be kind of, I'll have a thought, something will pop into my mind and it will relate to one of you, maybe a conversation we've had or something that we've done or something we've been on. And I'll just feel such deep gratitude for that one conversation we had or for that one moment that we shared together, because it actually shaped a really powerful part of my life after that moment, an incident had occurred. And I often wonder, going back to the lone wolf, back before we started these meetups, what path would I be what would I be chasing? What path would I be far down now had we not had this space and these interactions to explore in a slightly different way?
Yeah.
For me, it's really, it's two way. I think so many of us have grown up in a world where if we expressed something that, triggered someone else, then it would be really badly received. And we kind of learn from pretty young age, it's best not to, if something might upset someone, don't share it. And so it's really healing being able to sit with you guys and to be able to speak my truth, and for it to be received with, just like, thank you, or could you explain more, or, whatever it is, and not to be rejected. It's very healing to receive that, because I think we all, every single one of us in this world, want to be able to speak our truth. I think so many of us are so used to not being able to do it, that when we come to do it, we do it with such anger or fear that it then provokes a reaction from the people around us as well, and the whole thing just descends, and we just, time and time again learn it's easier not to speak our truth. And I'm a massive believer. I mean, connection for me is such a driver in my life. I'm a massive believer that resentment is such a killer of connection, and resentment boils when we can't speak our truth, right? So I don't think it's just like good that we do this. I think it's essential that we have places as men, I mean, for women too, but for us sitting here and me as a man to be able to express my truth and for it to be received. And vice versa, if I'm going to want to be in that place where I can express my truth, then also allowing other people to express their truth and to be able to sit with it and, be grateful for their expression. It's a massive evolution.
Love that. I love that. The idea that resentment is what keeps us from connection. And it's so true. I mean, I'm a recovering Mr. Nice Guy, and this is what Mr. Nice Guys do, right? They say yes to lots of things, and then internally they resent it. And we can create all these resentments that the other person isn't even aware of. And I had an experience in a retreat I went on last May, a men's retreat. And on the second day, I was going back for seconds with desserts, and very jokingly, one guy goes, "Seconds dessert, is it, Burgess?" Really, there's no harm intended, but actually, as someone who I really respected, and it hurt me. There was a part of me that hurt me, and I didn't quite consciously recognize it at that moment, but it triggered something in me, and I let it go, even though I kind of at the moment was like, I didn't really like that, but I kind of let it go. And on the last day, we had a dark arrow ceremony where you call someone into the middle and you tell them directly the thing that you have on them, or the feedback that you wanted to give them. And I shared it with him. I was like, that actually really hurt, because my childhood, I was a chubby kid, and I remember the coolest kid at school, joking with me, "Hey, don't let your tits wobble, Joel." And I was like, ha ha ha, and kind of joked about it, hey, that's funny, but deep down it really hurt me. For years I would pull down my t-shirt to try and hide my belly and my boobs, right? And in that moment when I shared it to him, that really hurt me, something just shifted in me, and I've been far more accepting of my body, of my image, and I've been far more willing to lean into confrontation, something that I've always been really scared of. So I think this whole feedback thing, as you say, Ben, it is genuinely essential. It's just as important as the celebrations and the championing each other, which I kind of want to get onto that celebration part. But it is essential work.
Yeah.
I want to speak quickly about celebration, because it's also something we can struggle with, right? And especially on this journey where you are this lone wolf sometimes, and especially conditioning where we're almost it's not a done thing, right, to celebrate yourself. And it's almost the opposite in the UK. It's how much can you self-deprecate? How much can you put yourself down and make yourself smaller? And for this, this one of the things I've got from this group is just a space where you can actually own your celebrations and be really proud. Lawrence, I want to come to you first, because I know this is a continuing journey for you, but tell me a little bit about what that's done for you, having this space where you can go, do you know what, I'm really proud of myself here.
I've definitely fallen into the trap of thinking that being humble is the same as being self-deprecated, personally, privately, in my own head, away from everything. And that definitely came with a loss of confidence for me as well. That would show up in, all different ways: imposter syndrome, fear of public speaking, fear of performance in public, all that kind of stuff, because I'd allowed my sense of humility, which was almost correcting an overconfidence that I had in my late teens, sort of overcorrected myself with humility, which was actually this self-deprecation. And so just being able to slowly chisel that away and realize that sense of personal pride in myself and trust in myself to, as you would say, get hard things done has been massively liberating. And again, for whatever reason, when you are self-deprecating, you are always looking for permission outside of yourself to put your hand up in the room, to apply for the position, to say something, whatever it is. But what this group has done in having 3 other men who are helping me to guide, taking my hand almost and guiding me and saying, look, these are things that you're actually quite good at, that we actually, see and celebrate, and we think you should celebrate, and pausing around that and not having this shame around celebrating oneself, and actually creating space through mindfulness to have awareness of where the self-deprecating element shows up in my life privately, has been, I would say, probably the leading factor in what I feel that I've been doing in recent years, which is stepping into manhood out of childhood, a late developer. But I would say that it's, how did you know, Joel? That's the number one thing for me. How did you know?
I think you've shared a few times that it's still something. I know Ben has invited you forward a few times. Like, actually, Lawrence, like, what are you celebrating? What are you bringing forward? So again, it's just something I've noticed, and I think again it's such a big part. It's like calling each other forward. Has anyone else got anything to share on that? Like the power of celebrating yourself and the power of having a space to actually go, like, I'm really proud about what I've achieved. It's like, yeah, has anyone else got anything to share there?
Go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say, Joel, I see you do it really well, and really let us into your wins, and I really feel that in you. I think that's where I'm learning from you. I think it's definitely still a work on from me, but I feel that in you and your celebrations, especially. I think, and it's beautiful to be able to know that you feel safe enough to be able to express that with us.
Yeah, I think there's. I remember my rugby days. There was, a big part of me that I remember if I had a great game, it was really cringe. But if I knew I had a great game, like we didn't do man of the match, and I like knew I was probably the man of the match, and I would go around being like, oh, so who do you think played well today then? So painful, but I wanted to be told so much, wanted to be told so much by others, and recently I've just started to take responsibility for that myself, and being really like, no one can say it for me. Like, I have to be my own greatest champion. And you look at the North Americans, and they are all very it's a mask, but they are confident people, because I sense that they genuinely celebrate themselves, and they are willing to claim their power, claim their strength, claim their results. So yeah, it's been a massive thing for me. And in my community, every Friday I get people like, come on, celebrate yourself. Benjamin Hardy talks about living in the game, not the gap. With ambition, we create this gap, of where we are currently and where we want to get to. If you live in the gap, it's a pretty depressing place to live, because you're always living in lack. So I take, regular moments throughout my day and week is just to look back and go, wow, that is amazing. Let's celebrate that. Let's acknowledge that. And I think there's a fear, perhaps, if we do that, then it's going to quash our motivation and our drive. And actually, if we just keep booting ourselves down, that's going to be the driver. But for me, it's the opposite. It's the more confidence and I feel, it's the more inspired I am.
I think that's what we've created really well in this group, is that exact balance, which is sometimes hard to create by yourself, of this balance of ambition for more, but taking the time to be grateful in the moment for these mini milestones along the way. Because unless you're really well trained personally to celebrate those moments, they're just short lived, and you're just chasing after the next, especially in our society as well, where there's always, so in our work that we do in the different industries, there's always somebody that's doing better, earning more, reaching more, doing this, selling that. So we're always going to have a potential of comparison. But what's really nice about this group is that we have this like different view on our world. We've spoken about this recently in one of our meetings, is that we have this behind the scenes world of each other, of these deep conversations and strategic analysis of where we're going in our life. And then we also view each other on the public forum of social media, and we see how our conversations manifest into our public presence as well. So we've got this really special, unique point of view where we can see what's going on in public, and then behind the scenes celebrate all these little moments along the way. And I don't think many people get the opportunity to have that multi-view relationship. So yeah, I'm really personally grateful for the ability to celebrate with you guys, because sometimes celebrating to some people can be a bit boasty, a bit up your own arse, and a bit kind of like, well, are you trying to be better than me by talking about this? But if you don't talk about it, it lives with it just inside of you, and you don't get to share these moments. Again, having this group is just a safe, great place, however small, however big, whatever it is. It's milestone sharing with each other.
Actually, when Joel brought up celebration, sorry, that was exactly the point that I was thinking. And this is going to sound wrong when I say it, but we've both seen a lot of the back end as well as the front end of each other. So when I say that, I mean,
and gone real deep.
You know, we've got very deep into each other's back end, whilst also having a real clear vision of that front end, that forward-facing element that you see if one of you is hosting an event or whatever it might be. And it does deepen the pride, because we've seen it all. We've seen the insecurities, the doubt, right through to the ideas forming. We've seen it all. And then when we get to see each other step out there and present who they are and what they want to share to the world and with the world, it does create this sense of deep celebration for each other. And I know I've experienced that with a number of you, just rooting for you so much, because I know it all and I've seen it all, back and front end. And it is the most amazing thing. It is the most amazing thing to experience someone that you've had that depth with out there, sharing their thing with the world.
Totally. Yeah. And I remember once, Lawrence, you and I were walking, the four of us were walking, you and I were talking, Lawrence, and you said, I wish you could see yourself how I see you. And it's how I think about all three of you. Like, I actually don't think we see our own potential. I think we're probably tapping into like 10, 20% of our own potential. And I sometimes wish I could actually borrow how you look at me. And because I know, like, the way I look at you, Lawrence, Ben, Alex, it's like, you're infinite. The potential I see in all of you is way beyond what you even think is possible. And I think just being seen like that is medicine. Just to be seen like that is healing. And I think we all need someone who sees our bigger version of ourselves, like sees our potential. I remember calling you once, Lawrence, and I was in a really dark time in my life financially with my business, and actually it was on a mastermind. You said something that has stayed with me since, and it was so powerful. You said, Joe, you've been here before, and like, you kind of got to let this go. And every time you're here, you always get through it. Like, it's almost getting a little bit boring. And you said it tongue in cheek, but it was a moment of like, wow. And you were so confident in me, and I had no confidence at that time. I was like rock bottom. You had so much belief in me, and you helped me see like the person I could be. And I think just to have a group of men, someone who can see you as that person in those moments, it carries you through so much.
Yeah. Well, it's clear to me that when you are on this growth journey, you're dedicated to this growth journey, very often the mind has not caught up with the person you've become. And sometimes we get stuck back in the past, and we need that little jolt and reminder from someone. And because then it reestablishes that belief in ourselves, and it kind of recalibrates our awareness of the present moment. and it gets us out of 2 years ago or whatever mindset we're still stuck in. But we trust each other. So when we say that to each other in this group, because we have seen it all and we've been to all those deep, dark places as well, we believe it. So it's different to you having a more surface level friendship and someone just saying, it's all right, Joel, you can get through this. You got through this before. You know that's a lovely gesture, but it doesn't have the gravitas for someone who has been on this journey with you in the depth that we have in this group.
I wanted to ask you, what advice would you have to like other, and I'm going to say men, because I think men in particular are lacking these sorts of containers, these relationships. I think women are far more, in my opinion, experience anyway, speaking to my wife, that they have far more open and honest relationships. You know, I can't obviously speak for all women, but what advice would you share to other men who are looking for these kinds of relationships? Because this mastermind happened very naturally. And I think it was a kind of universe putting us all in one place, because we've all kind of gone on the journey at the same time. It started business, and as Lawrence said, it's like gone internal and it's gone into this deep spiritual journey. And then we started talking about aliens and and the universe and the stars and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, hang on a minute, 7 years ago we were talking about Nando's and talking about how much I want to weigh in 3 weeks. But like, what advice would you give to someone who's looking for like something like this? Because I just know, actually deep down, a lot of men are longing for something like this.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of men really are, I think, longing for this. Every human craves connection, you know, it's ingrained in us. I think the thing with men is that we're so accustomed, it's so unfamiliar, that it can feel uncomfortable when we do sit in these kind of spaces. And so for me, excuse me, the thing for me with men is, don't be put off if it feels uncomfortable. Don't let that be your driver. It's like, oh no, that doesn't feel right to me. I don't feel, it's not really my thing. It's like, no, that's the thing to lean into. If those riches, those beautiful things exist beyond, again, God, it's the cliche, isn't it? But beyond the comfort zone. And I think so many men just are so unfamiliar with connection and speaking truth and vulnerability and all this kind of stuff, and holding space for one another and listening and allowing one another to share emotion, all this kind of stuff. So when it happens, it's uncomfortable. So they think, it's not for me, I'm going to go. And just to sit beyond that, to go beneath it. That's why, I still have it. I've done, when I've done men's retreats and you go off there, and even then I'm on my way going, what am I doing this for? I could be at home. I don't need to go through this. And, sitting there at the beginning going, I've heard all this before. And then by the end of day 5, you're just like, I'm so glad I've just had this experience, connected with these people. I felt what I felt. Sometimes you just got to sit through the pain, sit through the discomfort to get to something really beautiful.
Yeah, totally. The kind of example I use is like apologizing to your partner. Like, I have it sometimes where I deep down know that like I was in the wrong and I reacted not the way I wanted to. And my default is to like defend, like attack and make them feel bad. But then when I take myself away, like it just doesn't feel good. Like it stays in my body. And there's so much resistance. Like I feel it now, so much resistance to saying sorry. But then as soon as you say sorry, it's like the deeper connection is at the end of that. And I think it's the same for this. Every time exactly what you say, Ben, like every men's retreat, I've actually only been on one, but it was a very, very deep journey for 7 days. Every time I had resistance, there was a moment in this retreat where for 20 minutes, we held another man to a beautiful song, and it just melted into us. And it was just 20 minutes to give this other man total loving presence, like total loving presence. And my mind was like, fuck me, man. Like this is so painful, so awkward. Like, what if my rugby mates would see me do this? Like, this is cringe. But I was like, no, it's here for a reason. Let's just really lean into this discomfort. How present can you be to this? And 10 minutes in, we're both bawling our eyes out like little babies. This is a guy I've literally met 3 days ago. And then afterwards we hug and we look at each other and like, there's no words needed. And if I hadn't have just lent into that discomfort, I never would have had that experience. And I can't explain consciously what I healed in that moment, but there was something. And it's hard to put, I mean, we've tried to put words on it today, but it's hard to put words actually to the power of this friendship, this brotherhood that we formed.
Yeah. Your body probably knows what it's going through, even if your mind can't comprehend or explain the healing that you just went through, but your body probably does. But I was just thinking there, like, with obviously, if we can inspire men to be ready to go on retreats by themselves because they feel ready to meet strangers and go on this journey, that's amazing. And that probably is a great approach to make. But it just made me think, like, after having an experience like a retreat, like you've explained there, how is it going back into the rest of the world where most people we interact with aren't very connected or embodied or open? And it made me, well, first of all, answer that, but also it made me think your initial question to us. I think it's great to have upfront communication with other men about your intentions. Like, I am craving a real conversation here. I wonder if we could meet or create this group or something like that. So that's there, because sometimes from my experience, deep down, I'm craving for a real conversation, and all I get is surface level responses. And that's created resentment in me, like you're talking about resentment earlier on, that they don't know about. But I'm like, this friendship is annoying now because I wanted to talk about real stuff. But if I had just come up front and say, hey, can we cut the crap about the weather and the work and get to the real stuff, I might have had better results in the moment. So I think that's key.
You just wanted to speak about the aliens, didn't you?
Exactly. And sometimes I can't get there.
We talk about it sometimes, and I often think, I'm not going to speak for you, Ben, but my advice would be, just to have your eyes open day to day, just to really kind of see, because I think the signs will be there from other men. And I wonder, Ben, if you saw those signs from us, because you were looking, you had your eyes open, you were looking for this group before you approached us. Maybe you could talk us through your thought process from that time.
Yeah, I remember like exactly what you said, Joel, in terms of it is hard when you have the depth of connection, and then you come back and you experience the shallowness that Alex was just referring to, and you're just like, it doesn't hit me in the same way. I'm kind of, now I've experienced that level of depth. I want that level of depth because it feels good. And I was just at a stage in my life, probably because I reckon, we said 6-7 years ago, about 35, where I was like seeking more depth from my relationships now. I think that was really one of the reasons I was in that fitness group, just kind of to meet, more like-minded men, and maybe out of that I might meet some decent guys. Sadly, I didn't, but that was. Took a while.
Really wild to get there.
Was that an internet delay?
Yeah,
it must have been.
Check.
But no, and I just I had a sense, because I don't think the four of us had spent any time together collectively before, and it was like the universe guiding me again, because I'd randomly done I had a meeting with Nando's, and the marketing girl said, come along and have some, have dinner, here's 4 tickets. And so, I don't think it's kind of a fifth person that I was thinking of, if Joel can't make it, or if Alice or Lawrence can't make it, let's get them in. It was just like, and I think you were the only 3 that we asked, and we could all make it, which was amazing in itself. And it was obviously meant to be. But I think I was looking for more depth. And I think I must have felt that in the 3 of you, and that there was potential, that maybe you wanted it too. Yeah.
We could develop some sort of secret handshake that you could go around, and, if you were a guy who was up for some depth with some other guys and creating a little group, it would just be a little wiggle of the finger. I don't know.
I think
I'm sure that's called DF, isn't it?
Is it? It's existed for centuries.
Yes.
This is a high risk.
You have to wear masks and
confused.
I do think it's actually, there would be a good thing, because I think it is awkward for guys to sort of, like Alex, you were saying, it's kind of awkward to go, look, we're kind of messing around here, but I'd like to have a bit of a deeper conversation. And if I said that to some of my mates, that, I get rinsed even more, and it would get even more shallow, and I'd be like, I wish I hadn't said nothing. you know? So it would be kind of, if there was a little sign that men could have where we're like, I'm looking for something a little more serious, like today or something.
Yeah.
And men could kind of know.
Totally. I think we've all been on a bit of a journey with this, right? It's having this depth of relationship here and then kind of going out into society where you're not met with that depth. And I think the Mahatma Gandhi's quote of "be the change you wish to see." And I think we've all kind of been on that bit of a journey where perhaps we've gone to our other friendship groups and like wanted it so badly that we're almost like forcing it down their throats. Certainly I've been there. And actually that left me feeling really disconnected and lonely because I wanted them to come on this journey so much, like I was like forcing it. And I remember having a moment where I'm like, fuck, this is actually really hard. Like, do I want this journey this much? Like, it's much easier to stay there and to carry on drinking, whatever it is. But more recently, it's now taking a more like meeting, just being the change you wish to see. So not changing myself, but also being wise about it as well, like meeting people where they're at. And if there's an opening to like lean into that. And I think naturally what happens in groups of men, people will start to gravitate. And I remember a stag I went on recently where I almost find it very hard not to take or like not to go deep now. And I found one guy who was just loving it, and he was very early in his journey. He was so fascinated. So I was like, cool, this just naturally happened. And I remember a few guys coming over, like we were, lots of beers in, coming over and gone, oh, he's gone deep again, like joking about it, and then walked off. I'm like, cool, like that's fine with me. But there's a really nice bond happening here. So it's a balance of kind of staying true to yourself, but also being wise about it as well, and like meeting people well.
Yeah, and what you said about forcing. Go ahead, Lawrence.
No, you go, please.
About the forcing resistance. Often I find either forcing the conversation or trying to get your beliefs across. If that's met with resistance, that's only pulling yourself away from yourself. And I think having this no expectation of anybody else, like I said, meeting them where they're at, is the best relationship you can have with yourself, ultimately, knowing who you are anyway. And your job is not to change someone's belief or tell them or whatever, coach them or whatever. It's ultimately knowing who you are and just being yourself and shining your light is doing all the secret magical inspirations happening around you. That conversation can lead someone down an incredible path, or you just being you, standing in your authentic self, is creating moments you don't know in friend groups or people out in public, I think.
Yeah, it's like not showing up to dinner. This is something I've kind of worked on myself, is not showing up to dinner parties with preempted resentment and prejudices that I'm carrying about, oh gosh, I'm going to have all these kind of, surface level conversations about, work and this and blah, 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 blah. And I realized that I'm carrying a resistant energy into those situations. So to just let go of that. And as you say, be playful and curious, and whatever the energy and the conversation in the room is, then just respond to that in a way that feels good without trying to, shift or change it, or bend it to your will, or turning up with that resentment already fully loaded because you have some preconceived ideas or you're carrying some prejudice with you. So, the work shows up in that regard as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was just going to say that, just speaking to the audience, I think there are also so many events now where we just be guided, and I would say be guided almost by tension. Some of my closest bonds with other men have actually been where there was tension. Like I remember sitting when I first met you, Ben, you were guiding a meditation. I never meditated to that point. And there was this guy, long hair. And I remember feeling so much tension towards you. Like, this guy is a little bit feminine, but he's also pretty stacked and jacked. Like, this is confusing. But I lent into that tension. And I've done it with so many men since. Like, I know where there's tension, where I'm almost repelled by, there's growth for me and there's opportunity for me. So it's dropping that judgment and actually leaning into the tension And often what you'll be met with is surprise and delight and connection, which, I'm still waiting for, Ben.
That's my joke. And now everyone's laughing. And no one laughed for my one.
All in the delivery, my friend.
Clearly.
That's so true, Joel.
Yeah.
It takes courage. That takes
it's true.
courage. You've got a lot of wisdom in like following that tension and challenge. Like, how would you say? How did you pick up the courage to lean into tension and challenge rather than be like, oh, well, I'm repelled by that, so I'm not going near that?
I don't know. For me, when I was when I was like 13, 14, I would always stay behind after rugby training and take myself pretty much till I was sick. And I've always had almost just a knowing that that's where the growth is. So I've had that from a very young age, almost like the compass is where the struggle is, like where that is, like lean into that. So it has been a habit that I've just developed. Sometimes it's a bit of luck as well. So,
but ultimately, for me, Joe, what I'm hearing you say is you just learn to listen beneath your thoughts. It's always everything you just said is we all have thoughts and judgments around all this stuff, but when we get to listen beneath that and hear something else, we realize that there's also something else that's true too. And we all have stupid thoughts, and a lot of us don't know how to listen beneath them, right? I think the other part to it as well is that, without sounding patronizing or wanting to be better or worse than anyone else, I can still meet my friends who perhaps haven't gone on a journey where they're at, but they can't meet me where I'm at. And so, it's just adjusting our expectations. And whilst I don't want to necessarily lose myself, and it doesn't necessarily feel great to not connect where I'd like to connect, it's like, well, and especially with family where you don't get a choice, it's like, well, I'm just going to continue to suffer if I expect people to meet me where I want them to meet me. Can I just sit in a space where I can, entertain them and keep a relationship that matters to me alive in whatever capacity it's meant to, and but just not spend that long in it, because it can get tiring performing like that. And there's also degrees to it as well. We're not talking about completely losing yourself and completely, becoming something entirely different, but just perhaps being able to talk about gossip if they can only talk about gossip, which is often the world.
I want to kind of draw things to a close, and I thought it'd be fun to just put someone on the spotlight and for us all to just share kind of 3 words about that person, about what that person brings to the mastermind golden shower. It's meant to be a golden shadow, but I kept on saying golden shower in a workshop that I ran recently, which went down differently than I had planned.
Oh, brilliant.
Now Lawrence will attend them.
Yeah, exactly. Alex, so just maybe start with Alex, like 3 words for Alex, what he's brought into the mastermind. For me, it's playful, curious, and bold. No, playful, curious, and consistent.
I would go with, I really like bold. For some reason, like unwavering just comes to me, like just this unwavering belief, maturity.
Thanks.
Playful as well. Can't not be playful. Knowing Alex. So playful, abundant, and depth.
Thank you, guys.
We'll go for Ben next, and I'll start. Depth, grounded, and playful.
I'll say authentic, passionate, and silly.
God, it's tough going last, isn't it? It's crazy the amount of time. Not joking. How words that I've had have been picked by you guys as well. So it must be on
you can do them as well. It's fine.
Okay. Tall.
You probably need longer, don't you? Probably need half an hour to get through.
Aware. Not sure if we had that one yet, have we? Yes.
No.
Okay, aware.
Dead Space Kills podcast, by the way.
I think we've gone past that point now.
Sorry, I thought we were...
No one's listening. It's fine. No one's listening. Checked and gone, the recording must have...
You can edit it. You can edit all the pauses, the dramatic pauses.
We're not recording Lawrence's bit anyway, are we?
That's true, yeah.
Aware, aware, curious, and quirky. I don't know why I say quirky, but it comes up.
Thank you.
Lawrence. I would say joyful, wholesome, and present.
I would say lovable, fun.
Idiot. Sorry.
I'm waiting for it.
Someone had to.
The lips quivering.
I know. I couldn't help myself.
I'm going to swap idiot for foolish.
Nice. Just a slight tweak.
I'll be nice to you, Lawrence. Don't worry. Let's go for humble, strong, and connected.
So let's wrap things up.
No, Joel. You need yours. Who's going first?
Heart. Just always think of your heart as just being so big. That's the word I'm using. Heart, energy, so much energy, and love. You just like everything is just swathed in love.
I will go with impressive, powerful, and I think bold again.
Inspiring, brave, and a great dancer. 3 words.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard receiving. I don't know if you guys notice. It's so easy to give. Though I kind of wanted to say more, but yeah, it's hard receiving. Conditioned to receive that, are we? Did anyone else find it hard?
It is.
Yeah, I always kind of want to wrap it up in some silliness or just, almost like
Totally.
deflect it with a joke or something.
Yeah, totally. Beautiful. Just last thing I kind of want to end on is just 2 questions, one for each of you. What's the chapter you have been in called, and what's your next chapter called? So what's the chapter you've been in called, and what's your next chapter called? And I'll come to you first, Ben.
You can come to me. That's 1 in 3 chance, wasn't it? But
It
current, I guess it's going to be cliche, but I'd say current chapter growth, future chapter abundance.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
What about you, Lawrence?
So the previous chapter has been the chapter of fertilizing the soil. It's been a chapter of nurture, and then the next chapter is similar to what Ben's saying. It's the chapter of real growth from that soil, from said soil. Soil is now fertile. Plant can now grow.
Please don't write a book.
Or do a podcast.
Or do a podcast.
My last chapter is remembering, and my next chapter is becoming.
Oh, love that. Remembering who you are. I assume that's sort of what. Yeah, I love that. My last chapter was fighting. Like it felt like a fight. My next chapter, I want to go for expansion or depth. So I'll go for both. Yeah. So grateful to have shared this space. Just beyond grateful for you 3. I wouldn't be the man I am today without you 3. You each inspire me so much, and just forever grateful and incredibly excited for where this is going. It genuinely feels like just the start. And I hope one day that we can create something very big together as well once we have that space. So yeah, thank you so much for your time and energy today. Really appreciate you as always. And I think Lawrence can take a photo. Or has he done it?
I'll do another one. I'll do another one with the thumbs up.
Oh, there you go. We can cut this bit out.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah. I missed it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Well done, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Just stay with me for 1 more minute because I have 2 things to share. The first is if you're looking for support in growing your coaching business and becoming more powerful in your coaching, then go ahead and join my free community. The link is below. And then secondly, if you enjoyed today's episode, please go ahead and leave a review on whatever platform you're on. Again, this helps me out more than you know, and it's truly my mission to spread coaching as far and wide as possible because I really believe that coaching can change the world. And your review, your subscription, your like goes so far in helping me in that mission. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode. I've got some amazing guests planned, so keep your eyes and your ears peeled. See you very soon.